It's Limitless against AOR Martin in the Brazilian Grand Prix, the Grand Prix known for extremely dynamic weather. And later on we'll talk about the Australian Grand Prix, the season opener for the PlayStation 3 Season 11 with F1 Dan. I'm Pepper F1.
And I am Niran, and welcome to the AOR Talkshow.
Here we go!
Okay, so then, yes, welcome to episode number 2 of the AOR Talk Show, and I'm joined today by Pepper and also F1 Dan, who'll be discussing the PlayStation 3 side of things before the season opener in Australia. But first of all, we're going to talk about the Xbox finale on F1 2013, and it's Limitless versus Martin for who will be champion going into Brazil. As Pepper said, it's famous for its changeable conditions and usually pretty carnage-filled races. So you guys looking forward to this?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, who doesn't love Brazil, right? It's a short track, but it gives a lot of action, and even on Season 10 on PlayStation, we had also quite interesting race with rain participating, as Dan knows. But obviously we have 16-point gap between AOR Martin and AOR Limitless, and it's not looking good to Limitless, is it?
No, it's a pretty big gap to overhaul. Obviously Martin has to finish 5th or lower. He has to finish lower than 5th if Limitless is going to win the championship, which is saying quite a lot, that because obviously Martin isn't the kind of guy usually to disconnect. Usually that tends to be Limitless, comparing the two of them. So it would have to be a very, very difficult race and a very carnage-filled race if Limitless is going to take the championship, because Martin ultimately is going to take it nice and smoothly, just make sure he gets to the end in a decent position. And you would say that he has the pace, certainly to finish in the top 5, barring any sort of disaster. Obviously we saw in, was it India, where he had the incident with Brosiek and other races where he's potentially finished outside the top 5, but they tend to be when he's involved in an incident. When he has just his normal pace and has a normal race, he certainly finishes on the podium, so it's definitely an uphill task for Limitless, but it would be nice to see what the people that are watching think. So if maybe they dropped it in the comment section who they think is actually going to be the champion after Brazil, that would be really cool.
Yeah, I mean, we can't forget that Brazil has a short track, but lots of potential overtaking points on the track, and there has been some crazy races with the pack all together and fighting for several positions at the same time. I mean, I still remember on Season 7 that triple overtake by X360 G on the back straight. I mean,
stuff of dreams, I remember that.
I mean, these races can happen, and maybe Martin can be caught in an unwanted fight and let Limitless run away like Martin did in Spa, and Limitless got caught up in the middle of the pack. So I only see Limitless winning if such thing happens to Martin, but it can happen to Limitless again. Weather can screw the whole field up, so it will definitely be very interesting to watch. So look out for Fizz's or Matt's Twitch channel where the race will be live streamed. Anyway, now for the season opener for Season 11 in PlayStation 3. Obviously it's a brand new season, more than half of the grid new, and it's not a bad track to start, but obviously we already know, everyone knows, the Melbourne circuit. So let's take a little look at what we can expect from the Melbourne track. Melbourne, Australia. The 5.3 street circuit of Albert Park will be the first challenge for the drivers on AOR Season 11 on the PlayStation platform. The unforgiving nature of the track and the various overtaking locations make it the perfect season opener, where the punishment for mistakes is high, but the reward for a good result is even greater. Especially when the rain creates the chaos. Now let's get on board, where Justin will take you for a lap at the Albert Park circuit in Melbourne.
So here we are at Albert Park, where we're going to take a look at the lap that the drivers will have to contend with for the first race. Heading into turn 1, a fairly high-speed corner, third or fourth gear even, depending on driver ability, tire life, fuel load, that kind of stuff. Heading down in the second DRS activation zone down towards turn 3, which is definitely going to be the most popular overtaking location. Turn 4 can be difficult on high fuel. Turn 5 is going to be flat out in these 2013 cars, no matter what the fuel level is. Don't expect to see too much overtaking into turn 6 here, but it's very possible to get it done there. Turns 7 and 8, of course, flat out, and then a pretty heavy braking zone towards turn 9, so we could possibly see some overtaking here as well. You wouldn't think that the turn 11, 12 chicane, the high-speed left then right, would be a good overtaking location, but because of this long straight here and the curves that the drivers have available to them, we could see some overtakes, some side-by-side action into these high-speed corners. Coming out of turn 12, another very long, flat-out section. Another potential overtaking location here. You break down very late, down into third gear for that corner, and then this corner is not quite flat out. You're definitely going to have a lift through turn 14, and into turn 15, a first or second gear sort of hairpin corner, and then the final corner on the circuit where it can be very difficult to get the power down, but can set you up for a great overtake into turn 1 or turn 3.
Now we're here with F1 Dan again, that finished third last season in a very eventful Grand Prix with Inters being used on the qualifying and then being used again on the race later on. Dan, you were one of those who started on the prime tile, weren't you?
Yeah, I think we had an intermediate qualifying session as well, didn't we? So it was a very wet weekend we had in Albert Park last season, so it's going to be interesting if we get similar conditions again this weekend. Obviously, a lot of rookie drivers, they probably don't want Inter's conditions.
Well, we might not get Inter's, we might get a wet, which would be worse. But yeah, it was a good race. I mean, Iceman kind of flew away at the start of the race, but from second downwards, it was quite eventful. I mean, I remember, what was it? Pepper, you, and James? No, not James. It was Falcon fighting for second place, and then the rain starts to come down, and was it James that on the second sector saying he was wet, and all three drivers were like near the pits, and everyone just steamed by, put the winters on.
Yeah, well, I didn't know. Obviously, it was like raining quite slowly, and it was like a big decision to go onto the intermediate tyres, because obviously prime tyres and option tyres, which people were on, were getting quite warm by that point. And I had my microphone muted, so I had no idea. So I think you overtook me, and then I just saw you diving into the pit lane. I was just like, I've got to go in as well, because otherwise I'll be just losing too much time if I make the wrong strategy call.
And
so
Iceman,
yeah,
if I remember correctly, he only pitted like 3 laps later or something like that, which gave me the leading position. But then you and Falcon were fighting and pitted for Inters again, and I decided to stay out for some reason and do 13 laps on Inters, which didn't go very well. But yeah, Naren, what do you think will be the main things we need to look out for this Sunday's race?
Well, given the history of like the Grand Prix in this league, I definitely think changeable conditions could feature at some point during the weekend. I know the rookies won't be looking forward to hearing me say that, but it could well happen, and that would really spice things up, obviously. But what I really want to see is how the two Williamses come into the league. There's been a lot of hype and talk about them coming in and probably maybe being favourites for the championship, along with Dan, maybe a few of the Ferrari drivers as well. So maybe seeing how they do on their AOR debuts in comparison to some of the more experienced guys.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Dan was looking forward to deny the Williams the win in Melbourne for a start. What is your what are you looking for this season opener, Dan?
Well, as sadly Australia really isn't a very strong track meet, so it's just solid points. I mean, if you're looking for a championship campaign across the whole season, you don't need to win every race, but you need to make sure, like Martin and Limitless have done on the Xbox side, you need to stay consistent and make sure you're getting good points at every Grand Prix. Obviously, going on about the Williams, obviously Callum raced last season, incredibly quick driver, whereas Shane, I've raced with him a few times in different leagues, but obviously I don't really know what he's like across the whole season, so it's going to be interesting to see how well he does across the variety of tracks that obviously.
And what is interesting as well, I mean,
provides.
Dan already said it's not one of his strongest tracks, and Callum says the same. So I'm not sure about Shane,
it could open the door for someone different to win.
Yeah, I mean,
you never know.
We can look.
It's hard to predict anyway with all the rookies there are.
Yeah. Speaking of rookies, sadly, we need to also mention that the second Lotus driver, Pedro, won't be able to race, as he failed the paint test. So, unfortunately, it's an open gap at the Lotus car. If you feel like you can't deliver enough for the reigning constructors champions, well, go to the AOR site and sign up. But yeah, it's sadly the Lotus will be only with one driver at Melbourne, but we still have a very strong grid in my opinion, and as you said, it will be very interesting to see what the Williams and also the Red Bull and the Ferrari can do, because I think, as we said in the last episode, they are kind of the favorites to the top three of the constructors. So if the weather surprises, maybe you have the others taking the lead, but we'll need to find out that in Sunday. So also make sure you go check the James channel where the race will be live streamed. So I can imagine a lot of people with two tabs open, one on Twitch and the other one on YouTube, to watch both races. But yeah, unless any of you has anything to add about this Australian preview, we should go to the top 10 facts about Australia.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay, so
if you want, if that's okay, Dan.
Well,
yep.
Let's go then to the top 10, and starting off, we have the first fact, that is, in 6 Grand Prix around Melbourne, Australia, the pole sitter only won 3 times, while the lowest grid position for a winner was 15th place in Season 8. Now, either he's a god, or something really strange happened on that race.
I'm looking forward to this Grand Prix, because if we could have someone from 15th potentially winning the race, that would be brilliant. I don't know what happened in that race. I want to know what happened, in all honesty, because it seemed very interesting. But do you know actually who that was who went from 15th to 1st?
Oh no, but It was Ollie, I think, which
That's very impressive.
ended up like 4th in the championship. I might be completely wrong, but I think that's the thing. But I'm sure Dan wouldn't mind starting on 15th place if he would won the race.
If it meant he was going to win, yeah, I was going to say.
I'm just saying that the person starting 15th will probably be James, who is streaming. So if he wins the race, I've got a few questions to
I
ask.
can imagine. And the race commentator takes the win at the Melbourne Grand Prix, and
God,
everything
that would be
goes
so
to
awkward
bunkers.
to have to do. His reaction would be great, though.
Indeed. Niren, second fact.
Okay, so in 5 possible, there's been 2 wet qualifying sessions so far in Season 6 and in Season 10. So those changeable conditions going back up again, that topic, hot topic, that could end up changing the race again this time. Yeah, 2 wet qualifying sessions. Is that just wet affected or actual full wet conditions?
Well,
I'm guessing it's just wet affected.
Well, Season 10
affected
was
either.
fully on inters, despite some drivers trying to go for super softs at the very end of the qualifying. But last year it was
Might as well
fully
try.
fully inters. Yeah.
Yeah.
But obviously,
Well.
if I prefer to have a wet race and a wet qualifying.
Yeah, wet qualifying and then a dry race really mixes up the grid. So, or usually does anyway.
Oh yeah.
So it can potentially create a bit more excitement, but probably only in the first few stages. Whereas if you get a wet race, it could potentially be like really interesting all the way through.
Yeah. Now going to fact number 3, the gap between fastest dry pull time, which was in season 7, and the slowest on season 9. So a direct comparison between the V8 and the V6 turbos was 3.6 seconds, while the top 3 fastest pulls are separated by 1.8 seconds. Well, it's not that big of a
3.6.
gap.
Yeah, 3.6 around a track like Australia is a lot, because it's a fairly short-ish lap, especially in qualifying with like low fuel loads and stuff. 3.6 seconds is a lot, and the 3 fastest being separated by 1.8. I'm guessing, yeah, that's still quite a lot.
No, I mean, of course, season 7 was on F1 2013, season 9 was on 2014, which it was a slower game because of the cars and the aerodynamics of the car and everything else, and the slowest of the top 3 was on 2012 cars.
Okay.
So maybe you can find some reason why the gap was so big, but I mean, I could expect it to be bigger, to be honest, because especially between season 7 and season 9. But yeah, if I remember correctly, season 7 and season 9 were both pole positioned by Williams. I know season 9 was. Not sure about season 7.
Okay, well, if that is true, then season 7, season 9, technically season 11, if you go by the odd numbers, should have a Williams on pole.
Well, that wouldn't be good.
Unless Dan has something to say about it.
No, don't say that.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. Anyway, next fact, Niren.
Yeah, so from the 3 times the pole sitter didn't win the Australian Grand Prix, twice they didn't actually finish the race. So on the 3 occasions where obviously the pole sitter didn't win, they didn't. Two of those times they didn't actually finish a cheeky DNF, which is obviously not ideal. But it seems to be a track where actually it's not overly brilliant to start on pole. Obviously you want to have a good qualifying, although apparently in season 8 that didn't matter at all. No. But yeah, it's not actually a track really. It's not like what's the? I mean, well, obviously Monaco or Hungary or anything like that. There's a big scope for overtaking, so qualifying isn't the be all and end all.
Yeah, I mean, of course, this was what Dan wanted to hear, because if Williams do take pole, this would be what Dan would hope that happened to one of those Williams.
Exactly, that's what I was going to lead on to, Dan. Don't worry.
Anyway, going to the next fact, again involving the Williams, and this time the Williams is the only team to have won the Australian Grand Prix more than once, so it's really not looking good for the remaining. With
The
Toro
omens are strong.
Yeah, Toro Rosso, Ferrari, Sauber and Lotus with one win each. So I don't know. Either
Yeah.
this track is sponsored by Williams in some way, or I don't know.
Well, it links back to one of the facts we had last time, where it was sort of no team had won the Constructors' Championship more than once, or no team had had a driver win the Drivers' Championship more than once.
Yeah,
There's
the
no
Williams.
real dominant team.
The Williams
Yeah,
never won a Drivers' Championship.
That as well, and there's just no dominant team. That's why it's quite spread out. You've got 2 wins for Williams, but other than that, it's really spread out. So yeah, maybe an omen. If Williams win in Australia, they won't go on to win any championship.
Yeah.
Although they haven't won one yet at all. So
This is looking good.
yeah, it's looking good, Dan.
Anyway, next fact.
In 5 GPs with dynamic weather, it's rained 3 times, with the remaining being raced in overcast conditions. So it's never really sunny, unfortunately. You'd have thought so. You would have thought it would have been fairly sunny in Australia, but as it so happens, we either get rain or we get cloudy conditions. So if you're thinking of going as a spectator, maybe I would pass on that one. But yeah, again, the changeable conditions coming back into play. It seems to happen on a regular basis in Australia.
Yeah,
for these Grand Prix.
let's hope it mixes things up again. Maybe starting on inters and finishing on dries this time, or something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, going to the next fact, Dark PSI, Season 6 champion, is the only driver to have won the Australian Grand Prix twice in Season 6 and Season 7. Which is...
back-to-back victory.
Yeah. Considering we never had a champion defending his title next season, I mean, the fact that a driver won a Grand Prix twice, it's not really that big of a deal, but he did it, so congratulations to him for winning a Grand Prix twice.
Fair play. Because again, there's no dominant driver or dominant team. It seems to be equally spread out the majority of the time in this league.
Yeah. Anyway, next one.
So last season's race was the first that was decided on the last lap, with Iceman overtaking Pepper for the lead with only 1.5 sectors to go.
Yeah, we can go now to the fact number 9.
We can gloss over that one. Yeah, you guys can digest that and we'll move on to the next one.
I mean, no, it was a very fun race where strategy didn't really pay off as it did for Dan, for example, who started on Prime, so he did one last stop and managed to kind of stay with the top 3. But yeah, I mean, it's curious that there were some small gaps at the end of the Australian Grand Prix, but only this one was actually decided on the last lap with an overtake.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It would be nice to have
Pretty
that
unusual.
again.
Yes, that would be great.
Yeah. If
That would be
I'm the
lovely.
one overtaking, it's fine.
Yeah, obviously that's far better. Yeah.
I don't really fancy being overtaken on the last lap again. Going to the fact number 9, the best result conquered by an Australian driver in Melbourne was a 5th place by Jacko in Season 9 on his Mercedes. Well, as we know, the AOR is mainly dominated by British drivers, but still, we had one Australian at least, and he did well, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, there tends to be a lot of Australian leagues because of connection issues and all that sort of thing. Australia is quite a long way away from Europe, so I suppose that tends to explain that. But yeah, we did have one Australian driver, and 5th place is not too bad on home turf. Mark Webber managed that in real life in a Minardi, and he got loads of credit for it, so I don't see why Jacko shouldn't get for his result in Season 9.
Indeed, fair play to Jacko.
So yeah, so the final fact then anyway is there was always at least one British driver on the podium in Melbourne, and that's happened 9 times in total. Spain is the second country on that list with 3. So there's a big gulf in terms of the amount of Brits that we've had on a podium in Australia, and anywhere else Spain comes closest with only 3. That's a big gap.
Yeah, I mean,
the Brits are dominant in Australia.
If we look at last year's results, we have one little Portuguese in 2nd place. And
I wonder who that was.
I wonder as well. I mean, I have no idea. I would like to meet that guy.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure he's a cool dude.
But the remaining top 6, it's all British drivers.
Yeah.
So if there wasn't a Portuguese, it would be a full British podium on 2 British cars and 1 Swiss. So you British drivers need to give a chance to others. You know, I mean,
get me racing in the league. It won't be voluntary, but I will definitely be giving chances to other drivers because of poor quality, shall we say?
Oh, we need Dan to do it.
Yes, definitely.
Dan, why don't you give an opportunity to the other drivers? You have an American team.
He's too professional. He's too professional. That's what it is. That's what it is.
Yeah. Anyway, that kind of makes it for today. Unfortunately, it's already over. I know you guys love this show. I love it too.
It'll be back next week. Don't worry. I can hear the groans of "Oh no, it's gone." But no, don't worry.
Yeah,
it's coming. Well, there might be groans of "Oh no, it's coming back." I don't know. Whatever the circumstance.
Well, we hope not. We hope you enjoyed our time, our talking about this Australian Grand Prix and also the Brazilian. So you have 2 big races to watch out this Sunday at 8 PM British time. Obviously, you'll have the funny British guy alongside me next week as well, discussing the results of the Xbox Season 10 and obviously the results of Australian Grand Prix and previewing the Malaysian Grand. No. You see, this is what a regular calendar all seasons make to you.
Oh, of course. You see, I was just going along with that. Like, what's he on about? What's he said that's wrong? But yeah, you're right. Yeah, Malaysia is not the next track on the calendar.
It's Brazil.
Oh, Brazil.
So we need to go. So basically, Xbox drivers leaving Brazil, and we are entering Brazil for hopefully a very interesting second race. Anyway, we'd like as well to thank Dan for being here, and maybe next week we'll have another guest, but that will depend on how you guys love this show. So it's up to you.
We'll have to see.
It's up to you.
If we get the support, and then obviously we can attract some more names. I don't know how that really works, but still, it would be really appreciated if you give the same support as you did on episode 1. That was really cool.
Yeah, you were fantastic, but if you want toys to play with, you need to pay for them. So
not very expensive, thankfully.
Oh, thank God, no. I mean, YouTube doesn't cost much, so it's fine.
Yeah, well.
Anyway, that's all for me this weekend. I'll leave the final thoughts and words for Niren.
Yeah, well, just reinforcing that, really. I hope you guys have enjoyed the second episode of the AOR Talk Show. As per usual, you'll see it again next week. Once again, thank you for the support on the first episode, and if you know some people that like AOR, tell them about this, and hopefully they'll enjoy it as well. Don't forget, of course, to check out the races that are going on this weekend in Brazil and in Australia for the start of the PlayStation 3 League. But yeah, it's been a pleasure from me and Pepper, and we'll see you soon.
Goodbye.
Gravity is tight. Drop it down like water.